business science and how it will help you to unleash the power of your data. I'm actually very pleased because I think this session now comes nicely just after the panel that we had before. So no further presentations are needed. Ivan, if you could move to the next slide, please. Of course, thank you for coming to the event today and for taking the time to listen from us. And really the goal for this presentation is to make the time for you to think about the following questions that will be displayed on the screen. I really invite you to take a minute to think about how do you currently get a complete picture of your business. How are you able to empower your employees with data? And how quickly can you react to new customer expectations and demands? Think about these three questions. Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box. I'm very curious to know how you actually feel about these three areas. And during this presentation in the next minutes, hopefully we can share a vision that can inspire you on how to improve some areas. So since Tableau started in 2003, the mission of our company has not changed. So we are here to help people see and understand data. And when we mention people, it's actually business people or people that not necessarily have technical backgrounds, people that don't want to code, people that don't have the skills, people that need the data in order to support their decision-making process. Next slide, please. Thank you. I don't need to explain to this audience, this has been vastly discussed today, that data-driven organizations perform better. A data-driven organization is a company that allows their employees to have a complete vision of their business, a complete vision of their customers, and therefore they will make informed decisions. This will have an impact on adding more customers, new logos, retaining the customers they currently have, and last but not least, grow faster than, why not, their competitors. And this can be achieved with AI. So in the past, we relied on paper support, more recently in the last more than 20 years, in databases. And data, we don't need to explain further. We all know that we need data, but what's next? The next thing is AI. Companies have to start to assume that this is no longer a nice to have, it's a must to have. And with all this digitalization, the data science teams that the panel before was just discussing are struggling with bandwidth. This isn't scalable. And the vision here that we want to bring today is how can we put the AI safely in the hands of the business users? And the reality is that AI has been out of the reach for most people. It typically requires deep technical level of analysis and knowledge, and only some teams are really capable and aware of this. Meanwhile, the business professionals that are responsible for making critical decisions daily, that don't rise the priority level for a centralized data science team. That's why we see stories like this one displayed on these slides, that most data science projects don't get into production. And at Tableau, we believe it's time to expand AI beyond the data science team. So most organizations haven't been able to find the right balance between highly technical data experts and the business users with experience to actually with the experience and deep domain knowledge. We often see that the business users and analysts with domain knowledge and proximity to business data don't have the tools or technical skills to do advanced statistical analysis or to make machine learning projects themselves. They frequently rely, as mentioned, in data science teams to deploy custom models through a back and forth process of requirements gathering, a process that lacks agility and the ability to iterate quickly. By the end of the cycle, the data that the model was trained on is often stale and the process starts all over again. And meanwhile, business professionals are responsible for making critical decisions daily, and they don't rise the priority level for a centralized data team. And in this slide now, hopefully you can understand the concept. While in a lot of cases, data science might be the right solution, a highly precise model is not always needed to answer everyday business questions. So let's look at a quick analogy that our team came up with to illustrate the difference. When you need an exact latitude and longitude of a specific location, that is data science. But when you need to know how to get from point A to point B, specifically with context, that's business science. And this is why we created business science. Business science puts data science techniques and AI safely in the hands of business experts, enabling them to analyze and better answer their questions. This is a category of AI-powered analytics that dramatically opens up data science capabilities to custom predictive models, simulation and scenario planning, clustering, and on-demand models to more people. These capabilities enable those with domain expertise and the right business context to make decision-making faster. And then also frees up data from the data science teams to tackle large-scale, mission-critical, and highly repeatable problems. And last but not least, it will reduce development time, resource burdens, and hidden costs of building and deploying traditional custom models. So it's simple and fast, trusted, and integrated. Yes, thank you, Ivan. So where is data science specialized in exploring data to fix ongoing, recurrent, long-term problems with a team, like fraud detection, machine data, or IoT? Business science is all about optimizing business outcomes based on challenges, where experience, speed to insight, and business context are critical, like improve utilization, decrease employee attrition, and others. But this is all theory. What we are going to do next is you will see it in action. And initially on this demo that Ivan is going to run, we will see how business users can actually access data with no need for any technical skills. As far as they have the right data in front of them, they can, with drag and drop movements, to analyze their data. And at first, he will start from a perspective of a business user, then we'll move more at an analyst perspective, how an analyst can actually create and integrate AI into the flow of analysis of the business user. And with this, I'm going to hand it off to Ivan.
Thank you so much, Sara. And exactly as Sara said, we see at Tableau, we see business science as sort of as a new approach that fits into the conversation of analytics empowered and contextualized by business. And it's part of the conversation. AI is another piece on a significant toolkit. And this toolkit to really allow analytics to drive value starts by giving access to the data. allowing users without technical skills to be able to explore that data easily. And also within that same flow, to allow models to be deployed, to allow AI to fit into this analytics flow. And over the next few minutes, this is what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a very simple example where we can see how integrating simple, easy to use tools into this flow can really drive that value. So let's look at a sales example. As we are all used to, on this day and age, we look at this information updated and in an interactive way through a dashboard. That's our main experience of interacting with data. So if we look at a dashboard, we have sales values over different categories of products or any other kind of data we might be looking at. Everything's fully interactive. I can see and I can filter down to specific subsets of the data. And I can even do some more things like create specific data-driven alerts, so I can have, I can be warned whether some value goes above or beyond a certain threshold, or even I can ask to be resend this information by email, so I can have this information available when I need it the most in my email. So that is the common experience for most end users of analytics this day. It's a very consumption-driven experience. However, what happens when we need to go further? What happens when we need to explore the data, when we need to ask questions of the data, and specifically if we need to ask this in a way that requires technical skill that we don't have? Well, the first aspect of this, at least in our opinion, is to lower that barrier and allow end users to actually start asking questions using natural language. Natural language that translates what are queries written in a sort of a simple language into data queries is the first step of empowering these end users. So by driving this engine, it means that I can actually have a conversation with my data. And using exactly the same data that feeds into the dashboard, I can start asking questions. So if I ask, for example, for a total value of a certain metric, that value is displayed to me. But if I want to keep disaggregating that information, for example, by looking at information at a category level, by the product category that we were looking at before, or even going a little bit further, adding a subcategory to disaggregate further that my information, keeping these queries run in a way that doesn't require me to have any more technical skill. Same thing, I can add another metric, for example. I can add something like profit for this visualization as well. In this way, reducing the need for me to have the knowledge to know how to visualize this data. This data should always be visualized in a way that's most effective for considering the data that I'm looking at. In this case, I'm looking at two metrics. I can look at them in a scatter plot. Immediately, I can start spotting trends. And I didn't have to make that decision of how I wanted to look at the data. But if I want to make that decision, I can also still do that. I can, let's say, I can look at that as a bar chart, for example, looking at that information in a different way. So what I've done here is through a bunch of conversational queries to my data, I've been able to look at the information in a way that wasn't available in my initial dashboard. And I did this without writing one line of code or writing any SQL query, or even having to decide how I want to display this data. But actually, a lot of what happens and a lot of our view of analytics is that analytics is a conversation. It's an iterative process. It doesn't really stop in a dashboard. It doesn't really stop with one visualization. In this case, I can see that there's one particular subcategory within my transactional data that is the only one that's representing a negative profit. This is interesting to me. It's something that I want to iterate on. So I should be able to do this in an easy way. So for example, just filtering to this specific subcategory, everything is indexed on the background, and I can even add a little bit more of detail to it. Looking at information from a different focus or a different area of interest, looking at subsets of data in a way that's natural and that's dynamic. I know the same way that I've been able to do this using natural language, looking at now as a little bit more advanced user, but still a non-technical user, I could drive a different interface to allow me to run these these iterations. So going back at my original dashboard, from here, I should be able to still explore my data without having to just be limited to what's in here or what's available through natural language. So at any point, I can start editing this information, and straight from my browser, I have access to all the fields that comprise this same information, and I can start playing with the data in a way that's natural, in a way that is available to me. So for example, again, without having to decide or put the mental effort on how should I visualize this data, I have in this transactional information, for example, geographical data. So by selecting it, the decision of how to display this data should be already optimized. In this case, we're looking at the country information. So ideally, we would start by looking at as a map. And in this map, this is now where I'm able to actually start manipulating the visual characteristics of every country that I have, that is currently in my data within the different metrics that I have available. So for example, if by bringing in profit, I can see that information aggregated at the country level, representing in color, so optimizing my cognitive capability of interpreting that information for this particular metric. And again, as an end user, I can have the flexibility to look at it at different levels of detail, from country to state to city. I have complete control over how I want to visualize the data. And this exactly is the first step towards really democratizing the access and the capability of taking value out of the data. The same way we've done it, we can do things geographically, and we should be able to easily walk through this flow. And again, as we've seen before with natural language, be able to look at this through different lenses or focus. I'm just going to rename this so I don't forget what it is. And I'm going to go ahead and look at this actually in a time series logic, for example. So looking at the same metric, but let's actually, again, without having to decide how we want to look at this data, let's look at it at a monthly level. So completely different avenue of analysis, different aspect of the data. And actually, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this as a time series is that when we're looking at information, especially as an end user exploring the data, it is likely that we're going to end up finding points of interest, points that actually don't fit with our preconception or our imagined narrative of what this data should look like. And this is the first experience where AI can actually help us facilitate and speed up this process. So at any point without further analysis, I should be able to find one specific outlier of interest and actually start running some sort of statistical modeling on top of it in a way that's fully integrated within my experience. So if I see that, for example, in this particular data set, in January of 2020, that is our highest month in terms of profit, the metric that we've been evaluating. So if I want to understand further why that is, I can just run a series of Bayesian models. This is all done in the background within Tableau that starts developing answers and possible reasons why this value is statistically different from all the others, allowing me to speed up this process without having to require a more technical assistance to help me figure that out. So for example, in this case, it's quite an interesting one because I can see that, for example, this particular month is not that in average we've had more transactions or that the transactions have been higher, but actually there's been one particular transaction that we can see here on this distribution. Looking at these explanations visually also helps me understand what they mean. Looking at the distribution, I can see that there's one unique transaction that's significantly different from the others. This is something that without the help of these models behind, it will be a lot harder for me to come to this conclusion. So I have this transaction that's statistically different. It's an outlier. And actually, I can see a copy of my exact same visualization, but in this case, filtering out this one extreme transaction. So I can see the effect that this one particular outlier that was underneath the level of detail that I was looking at is actually changing the macro picture of what I'm looking at. So this helps me stay in the flow of analysis while still adding me that extra value. But let's go a little bit further and let's quickly look at things at a customer level, for example. So again, we're keeping this flow of analytics by looking at things through different lenses. So for example, if I want to map out all my different customers, I can just do that again by just looking at the fields that I have available, bringing them into the visualization and letting the tool make those decisions for me of what is the best way to visualizing this data. And having this information available in all these different lenses means that I now have the capability of bringing them on into one unique point of interaction. And in this case, as I've mentioned before, a dashboard that we've started with can be not only the end product, but is one piece of this whole conversation. So we started with the dashboard and we're going to go back at building a second one. And in this one, I've shown you a little bit what is the profile of someone that is exploring their data, but this would be quite similar as well to the experience of someone that is building content that leverages not only this interactive and visual capabilities, but also AI and empowers the end users to use the models that they themselves have constructed. So let's look at this. Let's actually start from this one. Let's bring in everything that we have constructed. Actually, I'll take out my time series and I'll bring my customer map. And now we can make everything here fully interactive. But what I want to bring here as well is a model that I've deployed separately. So obviously, still the capability of deploying models should be easy, should not necessarily be available to all the users, but the capability of using them, yes, that should be available to all the users within that flow. So I've used a model in the beforehand to actually maximize one of the metrics that I was looking at. I want you to maximize what is my profit category for this particular data. So I'm going to bring that in and bring those predictions into my dashboard by using the full force of Einstein discovery. So obviously, this does not require that that there should be all the data within Einstein discovery previously. This is part of the business science model that we were talking about before. It's all about integrating the power of different technologies into one single flow. So I'm going to configure to bring in the model that I've created. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi is a little bit slow today. Let's configure this. So I have a series of models that I have deployed within this environment. I'm just going to select which model I want to use and map out my fields. So obviously this model will have certain characteristics that have been displayed before. Let's look at some predictors as well. And let's deploy this model into my dashboard. So easy as that, it was just a series of clicks. I now have an interactive visualization that's bringing in that model into the dashboard. But this is not static, obviously. Everything that I do here within that dashboard and everything that one of my end users is going to do will affect how this model is being calculated. So for example, if I want to focus or reflect on such a specific subset of my data, let's say I want to look at a specific geography and I want to look at one specific customers, this model will now not only reflect what are the top predictors of the values that are currently being reflected, in this case, profit, the value that we want to maximize, but specifically will be actionable. And what is showing me is actually ways that I can change the outcome. So for example, I've chosen one particular customer and it's immediately giving me, if I want to improve this metric that is deployed in my model, these are the things that I have to do, particularly change the average discount that we're giving to this particular customer. So sort of summarizing everything that I've shown you here today is related to this idea of how do we make data and AI fit into the flow of analytics and empower the end users to take value out of it. Not only by allowing them within one single flow to be able to use natural language, lower the technical barrier so that they can take advantage of their data, easily build in visualizations and try and understand why certain outliers might exist in a certain visualization, but also be able as a slightly more advanced user to bring in deployed models and allow them to interact with what's already being built. And having shown that in action, I'm now going to pass again the ball to Sara to show you a little bit more.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
So hopefully it was clear that is very, very easy for a business user to analyze their data with AI. However, it only makes sense if we are successful at deploying it at scale to the entire organization. We need to achieve what has been discussed during the event today, a data culture. Data culture is, or we achieve a data culture when everyone in an organization has the ability to work with the data they need. When people can really unlock insights from anywhere to make faster and smarter decisions. And what we observe and studies say the same is that unfortunately today only very little number of companies actually can distinguish themselves by being more data driven, only 8 to 10%. And this means that most companies are falling behind. And at Tableau, we have been trying to understand what makes the difference for those few who actually can find success. And of course, technology is part of it, but is much deeper than that. It's about how we do things. And we need to being able to build a data culture. And for that, we came up with a plan that we call Blueprint. That is a step-by-step guide. So we spoke with thousands of customers, mixed with our internal experience, and created this framework. This methodology is filled with best practices and real-world advice to help you every step of the way. It addresses key elements of success across people, process, and technology. And of course, the people aspect is very important because we can't achieve a data culture without their buy-in. And to have a data culture, we need to engage them, getting them excited, and the community piece that you can see at the bottom is sometimes one of the hardest to achieve. So I invite you to take a look at this. This is an agnostic plan. You don't need to be a Tableau user in order to have access to it. I'm going to post in this chat box the link for you. So feel free to ask any questions after the fact if you have any. So I just spoke about the community. Community is really important. It is important at an internal level, but also why not leveraging the huge community of users that is available worldwide. And the Tableau community is unbelievably passionate and is an open community of followers and customers, more than 1 million worldwide. We call it Data Fan. The community is a place for everyone to come together, learn from each other, and inspire each other. So we have seen time and time again how the community has helped individual organizations and nonprofits over the world to succeed with data. And we have many examples worldwide of customers that are part of this community. And if you could move to the next slide, please, Ivan. We've worked with organizations of every size, in every industry across the globe. Our customers are leaders in their industries and use Tableau to change the way people interact with data. Tableau helps turn insight into action, cut down analysis time, and change behaviors to help everyone to be more data-driven across businesses. For example, Pfizer deploys Tableau to more than 25,000 users to improve patient outcomes and drive faster, more effective clinical trials. or in a different industry. Nissan deployed Tableau across all lines of businesses and every location, saving millions of dollars and reducing warranty claims. So over the past 15 years, we've learned what works and what doesn't work on building a data culture. And with this, we are almost reaching an end. If you have any questions or you would like to see more about the platform of Tableau or discuss just the framework of the blueprint or how to achieve a data culture, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than keen to have a one-to-one session about that. I'm going to post immediately here in the chat box the Tableau blueprint link. And yeah, I also invite you to take a look at the upcoming events that we have if you are interested in knowing more. And with this, I think we are okay with time, so we might be able to take any questions if there are any.
Yes, there are, hopefully. No, I see questions. Thank you so much for your amazing presentation, number one. Yeah, complimenti for the good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and now the question is from Noura. Let me see, Noura, if you want to type it or you want to have the mic for speaking, Noura. Let's see if I can, yes. Noura, now, can you please unmic so that we can hear your question? Yes.
Yes. Hello, it's Noura from OMT Digital from Italy.
Yes, go ahead. Sara is listening to you with Ivan.
Yes, I would like to know how or can Tableau manage real-time streaming data?
Just to confirm, the question is about how Tableau handles streaming data. Is that correct?
Yes, real-time and streaming data.
Good. I can give you a sort of a very quick answer to that.
Yes.
Tableau is really designed as a sort of as an analytics tool. First, looking at retrospectively, and then looking at the future with predictions, as we've seen before, and AI. Streaming data, as we've seen from my experience with customers, tends to be for specific use cases, specific niches that within the right infrastructure behind that can support it, it is perfectly possible to use Tableau as the analytics tool that handles the streaming data. Having said that, it's as I said, our main focus is really to look at data that's there, that's solid, that we're looking at, that is not updating on real time, because we would imagine someone is looking at the data at a time frame that is possible for a human to comprehend. That's sort of the design of the tool. But when Tableau is designed to fit with different infrastructures and analytics scenarios and architectures, then it can definitely take over those use cases. What I would definitely recommend, if there's a specific use case that is quite heavy on streaming data and real-time data, is for us to have a more in-depth technical conversation where we can go and really understand and dig into the details of this particular scenario.
Thank you so much for the question. However, you can then take the conversation after the presentation in the networking time or after the meeting. I have another question from Salvatore Grasso. Salvatore, it would be good if you write your company. Now I unmute you to ask the question. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hello, thanks, Musin. Salvatore Grasso from ST Microelectronics. So thanks for your presentation. We are proud Tableau users since many years. So I was looking at your presentation with a lot of interest. We are now in a period where we onboarded Microsoft Azure as a corporate data lake. And as you know, it comes with the native BI tool that is Power BI. Again, we are in a moment where we are trying to understand if our experience with Tableau will continue, will be hybrid with the Power BI, and the two tools can coexist. This is my view. This is my personal view, right? There are tools for different business users. Probably Tableau is much better for marketers that have no experience. It's very catchy, it's very easy to use. It's very, let's say, quick to develop something there. So my question is, what is your experience for environment, complex environment like a big company? And what about the coexistence of more than one BI tool? Thank you very much.
Sure. Ivan, do you want to take it, or should I?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So obviously, and from my customers, I've seen plenty of different scenarios where different BI tools. Sometimes I've worked with customers where 3, sometimes 4 BI tools coexist. One of the main points, and sort of one of the main points of feedback that I give to my customers is, are we looking at just having sort of little points of data that different teams use different tools based on the comfort they have on a specific tool? Or are we trying to build one single centralized scenario where we can actually manage the data and manage these analytics infrastructure at scale? Both scenarios are perfectly correct, and all companies can be in different stages of their journey. Our main goal at Tableau, and I think this is one of the things that distinguishes us, is to be that business-oriented, one centralized scenario where the great majority of the analytics use cases can be solved, and not only can be solved, but also can be proactively managed through, for example, our data catalog that we released a couple of years ago that really allows you to have a solid understanding of all the different analytics assets that you have from our governance systems, from our data management and preparation flows. So really, that's our end goal, is to sort of be that centralized, scalable, enterprise-ready scenario. Which, as I said, it doesn't mean that it can't coexist, but as we aim ourselves to be that, we actually find ourselves to be a sort of more solid tool than just something that ends up fitting a specific use case or specific scenario that sort of comes packaged with an offering. Also, we plan on being, we are, and we plan on staying completely agnostic. So we fit the infrastructure that exists, we fit the scenario that exists, and we match to the needs of our customers without sort of gapping them into one specific avenue. I hope that makes sense. Sara, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add, if you feel that's...
No, I think it covers it all. Actually, in our latest release, we just launched some additional capabilities on how to connect to Microsoft Azure. So it I don't know if it gives you any sign, Salvatore, but it means
absolutely.
that Tableau is also planning to stay as a partner of Microsoft.
So I can return to my DIT team saying, guys, no excuses. We can connect it.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salvatore, for your question, and thank you for being a proud user.
Thanks a lot. Any questions still? We have several minutes. Yes? Okay, thank you so much. So your presentation is recorded